If you do have a bold ad, you are going to get that free publicity.
Yes.
The TV programs are going to play it, people are going to write about it. But do we see those bold ads in Australia? It seems to not be such a feature here.
We're certainly not as polarised as they are in America, where the whole game is, with voluntary voting, charging up the base. But we will, certainly on the Liberal side, I mean, sure, the polls are very, very close, but the Liberals have a mountain to climb, right? And if you look at what Dutton has done so far to get himself in the position that he's in, he's done it by being bold, making bold calls, primarily on The Voice and on nuclear power. Wherever you stand on them, that's what's put him in this position today. He should take a cue from that, and the Liberals should take a cue from that. That boldness is the way to go.
The two really divisive, you could say, polarising positions he's taken are the reasons he is in this position.
And I'd even be
You should be advising him instead of some of his inner circle who I think are telling him to play it safe. I think this is why we're seeing him kind of step back from those
days. It's very early days. He ought to go bolder. And I'd be raising the spectre of minority government. Everybody knows what a nightmare it was in 2010 with minority government. I would be saying, imagine, if you don't like the way Labor is going, imagine Labor minority supported by the Greens. Raise that spectre and then put out policies there to really energise people and be bold. I think that's the strategy to go for the Liberals.
That sounds like an absolutely brilliant idea, because the Greens have become so radical, and it is entirely possible. In fact, many say it's likely that we're going to have a Labor minority government with the Greens. And given their stance over the recent years, everything from their crazy economic policies to their attitude to Israel, that would be frightening for so many people. So that could be a really powerful campaign if the Liberals get that right. Yeah. Now, we've also seen a lot of attention on social media, trying to reach younger voters through Instagram and TikTok. Let's look at this effort from Ministers Chris Bowen and Tanya Plibersek.
Nuclear uses 40% more water than even coal.
Yeah, and not only is it 40%, but for Peter Dutton to do his nuclear plan, you'd actually need this much water.
Yeah, because he says they're going to get a lot more electricity out of nuclear than we currently get out of coal. And when you put that together with nuclear needing more water, that means they will need a lot of water. And this isn't enough.
I just don't think they do these well, both Labor and Liberal. I see very few ads on that platform where I think, this one hits the mark. What do you think about that? Is that speaking to the converted? Is it going to convince undecided voters?
I don't think it'll convince a single undecided, but if you have a look at the comments section of that ad, it gets pretty negative. But look, yes, of course, Instagram does skew younger than mainstream TV, and they're obviously trying to do that. But does it really skew play school young? It's like they're in kids' chairs pouring water out to try to make this really quite simple point, which I don't think is the main game anyway when it comes to nuclear energy. So I think it's probably going to be seen as a little patronising, and yes, you're right, that they feel a little bit uncomfortable in the social media area. TikTok in particular, Labor are really, really uncomfortable if you have a look at what they're doing. But yeah, they're trying to be the cool kid when they're not the cool kid. It's much better to embrace your weakness and be yourself, which is what Dutton is, strangely enough, doing quite well on TikTok.
Yeah, he's got a bit of a following on TikTok, which is surprising.
Yep.
Now, before you go, we've got to touch on Clive Palmer. He tends to spend a lot of money on these campaigns. He's now bankrolling a new political party called the Trumpet of Patriots, which is supposed to mirror Donald Trump's policies, but I just think it's such an absurd name, Trumpet of Patriots. I mean, why wouldn't you just go for something simple like make Australia great again, or make Albo go away? That still says MAGA. Yeah. Something a bit more, I don't know, this seems like a satire.
It's complicated, isn't it? I can't even remember. I've got to read, what was it? Trumpet for Patriots? Every time I hear it, I've got to try to remember it again. He has done billboards with Make Australia Great Again.
Yeah, I've seen those, yes.
But what I think it does do, though, is that it stymies Labor's attempts to paint Peter Dutton as Donald Trump. Because the Donald Trump in this election is Clive Palmer. Right, it makes Peter Dutton look mild, moderate, considered. And I think that could be a real positive for...
That's not a bad point as well, because our media has just been so utterly deranged in covering anything to do with Donald Trump. So there is this real negative connotation, and Labor have tried to paint Dutton as Trump. So if you do have an actual
Trump
big,
figure,
larger than life, who's saying I'm Australia's Donald Trump, then that's can only work for Peter Dutton. Fascinating. Richard Ralphsmith, thanks so much for your time tonight.
Thanks again, Rita.